Hello, and welcome to the College of Creation. My name is Dan.
And my name is Michael.
And we are Dungeons & Dragons DMs who love to homebrew items, spells, creatures, and features for D&D. And this is a show where every week we make brand new homebrew creations based on prompts that we get from our wonderful listeners. They tell us the things that they want to hear us make, and then we make them present to each other every single week. And this week was less about new creation and more about going back to revise some old creations, specifically old creations that we had not made on the show, but had made previously to,
I love
or
this
outside
prompt
of the show.
so much. Yeah,
Yeah, it was great.
it's such a good prompt. Honestly, I'm surprised that it's taken us 60 episodes to do this, because I know we had talked about kind of going back and sharing some old things a long time ago, like closer to the beginning of the show. And I'm shocked that it has not happened yet. I know we've talked about old things before.
Yeah, I know, like,
notably your scroll of circumstance or whatever it is that can be rolled on every day. I love that. We've talked about countless things that we've used in our games and made prior to the show or concurrently, but outside of the show. I'm really happy to bring some stuff into the show from outside.
Yeah, definitely.
What a cool
Very
thing.
much the same. I mean, I think we've talked a lot about like the subclasses that you have made for home games. Your like space-focused ranger, your astral ranger we talked about. I know we discussed some of my subclasses that I made before we started the show. The first
the empath,
yes, the empath
bard,
which I like a lot, and didn't revise today. But that one's always kind of in various states of revision.
Yeah.
But like the first subclass that I ever made, I think we talked about the drunken warrior fighter that just was an absolute mess that I also didn't revise today because honestly I think it's beyond help. But yeah, I think we've discussed a lot of that stuff. We haven't gone into a lot of detail, and I don't think we've gone back into those things with the process that we've sort of developed over the course of making this show. I think both of us have changed drastically the way that we approach homebrew because of the way that we interact with each other around homebrew. And so going back with that sort of fresh mindset around how can I approach this in a way that I approach the things that I make for the show was a very different and interesting experience.
I agree. I think that full transparency, there are a few things that I included on here just because I think that they are very simple and useful. I have 2 items that I'm presenting today that really didn't update much other than condensing the actual verbiage down to a more digestible state. Which I think is the thing that I have learned the most doing this show is just reining in the ideas that I have and not trying to overstuff anything. So I think this is a good cross section of stuff that I had before put through the filter of Michael now in the College of Creation mindset. So I'm excited with what I brought.
Yeah, same. I think also, I didn't bring a ton of things, but I do think in the process of going back over some of my old creations, I noticed some patterns about the way that I used to create things. I noticed some ideas that I really like, but maybe just didn't feel right in the item that they're a part of, or in the object or creation that they're a part of. And it really got my wheels turning on kind of wanting to address all of it at once. But I had to rein myself in. I had to pick sort of what I picked was a kind of chunk of things that were made around the same time and within the same sort of thematic structure that I wanted to revise and bring into the show. But I will say I want to do more of this partially because I want to see more of the things that you made before or outside of the show, and just know more about what those things are mechanically, because there's a good chance that I would love to use some of them in my own games.
Same.
But also I'm excited to go back over some of my stuff.
Yeah.
And really make it feel like it actually fits into a larger thing. So maybe we can do some more bonus episodes of revisions rather than more full episodes of it. But
I think so.
That would be, maybe some smaller conversations that we can have over one specific creation from one of us, and really dive deep into maybe the background of that, the story behind maybe. We make so many things for our players, so discuss a bit more about how the process went from coming up with the idea with the player perhaps, and then figuring out how to make it work, and now going back and seeing, does it still work, and can we change it, can we adjust it? That seems like I would love to do some more of that.
Yes, I agree. I think that there is a lot of insight to be gained about a person seeing what they create previously and then like knowing them now. I think you and I are in a unique position because we met and then very shortly after that started this. Like in the grand scheme of things, it was like a couple months after meeting each other we started the show. So we were learning how to work together and learning how to be acquaintances or friends or business partners or whatever we were trying to be without really knowing what this was going to turn out as. We were starting all of it at the same time. And now that we are well past a year, we are past that awkward acquaintance stage, and we've grown as friends, we've grown as creative partners, we've grown as DMs and homebrewers away from each other, in our own games. So to take old stuff prior to Dan and Michael knowing each other and put it through those strictures was a really interesting process for me this week. Much simpler than I thought that it would be. I thought it was going to be this giant overhaul of my old things, and really it was more of an elegant refinement. It was a true smoothing the edges of something that was there at the core. The idea was good. I just didn't have the skills to make it truly polished, and now I feel like I do. Yeah,
I mean, I think, and as you were talking, I sort of got this sense, right? You mentioned working together as collaborators, and I wonder if maybe it's just an idea to kind of help continue getting the wheels turning, continue to help getting things more in line, or just generate ideas. But maybe there's an idea there where we could also find something within our back catalog of homebrew that we think, this is something that I think Michael would have a really good perspective on and would be able to really punch up, as you say. And maybe grab that and send it over to you in its base form, the original form that I made it in. Send it over to you and give you a little bit of time to look over it, answer some questions about where the idea came from and what, maybe if it's not super clear, what's the fantasy that we're trying to fulfill, or what's the idea that we're trying to capture with this thing, and then run wild with it and come back and present to the other person. So this is what I took, this is what I loved about it, and then that's what I tried to lean into. And so I made this change and this change, and I think it sort of captures that thing you're looking for a little bit better, and maybe have a discussion about that as sort of a collaborative exercise.
100%.
That would be cool.
100%. I actually, I thought about that this week as I was scanning through everything, deciding what to include in this. And there are a few things that I would that I can't make them work. I've just tried for years now to every couple of months I'll go back and and tweak it and be that's still not good. It's still bad. and I want it to work so badly. I think I'm gonna send those over.
That could be really fun. I think that could be
to fix and complete.
Really, a really interesting sort of bonus experience to just check in, try out some experiments on each other's creations and just see maybe if one of us has an idea that the other wouldn't have come up with for this object or this creation. Because two brains, and you gotta love it.
Yeah. I think it's time we should get into
I
the
agree with
creations.
that 1000%. I think it was me first last time, so why don't you tell me all about what you created this time around?
I think the biggest hurdle for me this week was deciding what to include. I tried at first to go with kind of a grouping by time period, kind of like you said you did. That didn't really work. And then I thought, oh, maybe I'll take a bunch of stuff all from one campaign, or all things that I made for specific players and talk about why I made them and things like that. And that didn't really work. So I threw all that out the window. And I said, I'm just going to find things that I think are useful, that I really like, and are memorable from my games. I tried to find things that players kept going back to or referred back to in other games that they played. So these are kind of like the hits. I have a collection of items and one playable species that I brought today.
Great.
First item is actually not something that I made previously. It is an attachment to the thing that I made previously. And I want to explain why, because we talked about something a few episodes back that we were both very excited about, and we haven't done anything with yet, just because we haven't been presented with the prompt to do so. But this is called a notation book. This is a baseline foundational adventuring gear item.
Love it.
To put music into. We talked a lot about when we made our instruments, our creature-specific items. I made an instrument that could play specific melodies, and you learn them based on how long you practice them, and you write them into a book or whatever. I didn't really know what the specifics were. This, for me, is the baseline. So I call this the notation book. This simple book contains 100 pages of notation paper. It can hold the record of melodies that you know, and is magically erasable if you want to notate new music but are out of room.
Cool.
And that's it. It's just blank paper. So that is not something that I've made before, but this informs this next one, which is something that my players have used several times, and this is called the Tome of Future Music.
Okay.
It is a wondrous item. It is very rare. It requires attunement. And I did add the stipulation that this is also a notation book.
Okay.
Anytime I make books like this now, I'm going to add that stipulation.
Cool.
This tome is bound by leathers stained a deep emerald green. All of the pages are filled with blank notation paper used to handwrite music. This tome can be used to keep a record of melodies you may know and contains 100 pages. As an action, you can activate the tome's magic, causing the pages to reconfigure into a fully functional origami record player.
Okay.
It will then play an instrumental song that accurately predicts the emotional tone of your immediate future. When you close the book, or after 10 minutes have elapsed, the music will stop, and the pages transmute back to their typical shape and size. The prediction does not take into account any possible circumstances that might change the outcome, such as the casting of additional spells, or the loss or gain of a companion. The tome can be used 5 times in this manner, and after the 5th time, its pages lose their magic, and it becomes a typical notation book.
Great.
So this is a paper record player.
Yeah, paper record player that has an augury similar effect, but maybe a bit more specific and much more thematic.
It's much more thematic. It's a little more creative.
Yeah.
In my experience with this, I have found that the first few uses, the players will ask me to do it. And then once they're comfortable with the item, I've had situations where maybe if a player hasn't spoken up in a little bit, or, whoever is kind of on the back foot, I'll ask that player to hum a little tune or describe what the music that comes out of this book sounds like. And it allows a player to kind of guide the next few scenes in a session in a way that feels relatively safe.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of like huge impact because circumstances that the book can't predict, I can always steer away from that if it's really crazy. But if somebody comes up with, wherever we're in a more serious setting, and this player says, I feel like we need to lighten the mood a little bit, this is going to start playing like lively festival music.
Sure.
Then it can be a way for a player to kind of soft steer into a different direction. I found this is a very cool way for them to do that without having to come up with crazy dialogue or really a reason for the shift. They can just say, this is hard rock music. It's heavy metal music. We're about to go into combat. Like,
right.
They can tell me what they want without telling me what they want, you know?
Yeah, and it also kind of sets that expectation for the table, right? If you've got a good table that there's a lot of trust, and someone kind of sets that guidepost for how the next scenes or the next moments should go, or what direction they should sort of lean toward, you know, the table can kind of have that in the back of their minds as they're going through the next scenes, the next moments, the next encounters, and just think like, you know, that changes the approach a little bit to kind of stay in line with that tone, which I think is that is a cool way to use that I hadn't upon initial reading understood as part of it, but I think that's a really cool piece of this.
Well, thank you, man.
I like that.
Moving on, the next one down, I call this Mystic Sand. This is a very rare, wondrous item. It is consumable. This beautiful, shimmering sand is made from crystals, precious metals, gemstones, and other fine substances instead of sediment or rock. Its magic directly is linked to the gods. This vial contains 1d8 viable uses of sand. Each use can take the place of one material component needed to cast a spell. Very simple.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, it's always good to have something like that. I mean, it's especially cool in, you know, if you build that into your lore, you know, if this is a limited resource, if it's a sort of fabled, rare resource, you know, when your players pick it up, they feel like they've got their hands on something very valuable. And super useful if you're playing with components, or obviously if you're using some cost components, that's hugely useful.
The homebrewed world that I play my games out of, this in my actual world, this is called Presidium Sand. The world itself is governed by kind of a panel of gods called the Presidium, and this essentially is like sand that you can only find if you're in the midst of one of those gods. Like if you stumble upon a temple and you find this and you know what it is, you can be sure that you're in for quite an interaction in the next few moments. Or you don't know what it is and you're surprised by a whole higher deity. This is one of the ones that I felt like I wanted to include because it's so simple and just nice and useful, kind of like bedrock D&D item type of feel.
Cool. I like it.
Thanks. The next is the Collapsible Trident. This is an uncommon weapon. It is a +1 bonus to attack and damage roll weapon. While holding this trident, you can speak a command word with no action required to cause it to collapse into a 1-foot-long rod. The weapon's weight does not change. You can speak a different command word, no action required as well, to cause the rod to revert back to a trident. While the trident is collapsed, a creature that's unaware of this trident's shape-changing property must succeed on a DC 19 Arcana check to understand the true nature as a weapon. Again, super simple. It's a trident that becomes a rod that becomes a trident. This is how you sneak weapons into places they don't allow weapons.
My man made a rod. You know, there's that.
Add this to the list. Yeah. Add this to the list of 6 rods. Yeah. Moving down to page 2. This is an item that I have mentioned on the show before. I think we have talked about it more than once. This is called the Eye of Blasting.
Yes.
This is a wondrous item. It is very rare. It requires attunement by a spellcaster, and this has had the biggest update.
Okay.
Because Eldritch Invocations have changed quite significantly, but also just the way that I look at creating items has changed. This was very cut and dry, like I'm taking gemstones and just randomly slapping Eldritch Invocations onto them. I think this is a lot more finessed. It's a lot more intentional in the pairings between the invocations and the stones.
Yeah.
So this is the Eye of Blasting. This magical eye can act as a replacement for a lost one. To attune to it, you must press it into your empty eye socket and let it acclimate to your body for 1 hour. Where its pupil would typically be, there is an empty circular setting where you can place a gemstone that has been cut into the shape of a sphere to fit the eye. Placing a gemstone into or removing one from the eye takes 1 minute. At the time of attunement, choose one damage-dealing cantrip that you know with a range of 10 feet or more. This is identified as your blasting cantrip in the table below. So that is a big change. That used to be, once you attune, you know the Eldritch Blast cantrip, and you can use it accordingly. Now, since everything has changed to be more universal, we're using a blasting cantrip. When certain stones are set into the eye, you gain the benefits of specific Eldritch invocations according to the table below. If you do not know a cantrip that meets the range requirement, you can still benefit from invocations that do not require a cantrip to be cast. So I'm not going to go through all of these. There are a bunch of them. But the big change here from where it was before, like I said before, it was quite random. I didn't really pay attention to leveling markers and prerequisites and things like that. Now this all scales by cost of the gemstone. So we start with turquoise and obsidian. These are very, very common gemstones. They're worth 10 gold pieces. And those are linked to invocations, the Eldritch Mind and Armor of Shadows invocations, which are 2 of the base invocations that you can get right away. That's advantage on con saves to maintain concentration and casting mage armor on yourself without expending a spell slot, respectively. And then it moves up to 50 gold pieces with onyx, rose quartz, and citrine, with the level 2 invocations. Some of them. I didn't include all of them. Things like breathing underwater, casting jump and disguise self, and then moving into the 100 gold piece range. These are all of the blasting cantrip invocations. So we have Eldritch Spear, which increases your range of the cantrip. In the actual invocation, it goes off of Warlock level. I just changed that to character level.
Great. Yeah, I think
we have
that
Agonizing Blast,
item,
of course.
Agonizing Blast.
Agonizing Blast, Repelling Blast.
Yeah.
And then I did include a stipulation here because I thought that they should still be included in the item. Grasp of Hadar and Lance of Lethargy are no longer selectable invocations. They've removed them from the list. They're only available in 2014, not in 2024, unless you have the Eye of Blasting. Grasp of Hadar pulls targets closer to you. Lance of Lethargy reduces their movement speed. Getting up into the 500 gold piece range, we have Peridot and Topaz. That gives us things like Fiendish Vigor and Devil's Sight. Seeing in dim light or darkness, both magical and non-magical. Casting False Life and getting a boon to your hit die. Up into the thousands with emeralds and sapphires and such. We have things like Life Drinker, allowing you to regain hit points when you use your blasting cantrip. Opal gives you 1 with shadows. You can cast invisibility on yourself if you're in an area of dim light or darkness. And then at the very tip top, we have things like rubies and diamonds at 5,000 gold pieces. Visions of Distant Realms, casting Arcane Eye without expending spell slot. Gaining True Sight to a range of 30 feet, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Those are the high level things. I think Witch Sight is like a prerequisite of like 15, level 15 or so, 14 or 15. So you need to find a nice old diamond.
Right.
You need to find a big old diamond and have it masterfully cut to fit that eye if you want to gain true sight from your Eye of Blasting.
Yeah.
But this is it. I have had a lot of success with this item in the past. Players have really helped me shape this from something that was kind of haphazardly put together. It started as a very small table. It had like 4 or 5 invocations that were just the Eldritch Blast invocations. And we've since, years later, built it out into this more extensive table to make it like Warlock light for people who are not warlocks. I found that this works really well for half casters or casters that gain spell casting through a subclass. The Arcane Trickster Rogue, fantastic item for an Arcane Trickster Rogue. Any Paladin, any Ranger, Artificer, this is perfect for. It is not as popular with the full casters. I've seen 2 sorcerers and 1 wizard just throw it away. They didn't need it, which is fine and makes total sense.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely something that, like, there's a lot of thematic and narrative weight to this. Obviously, not just because it sort of requires that you either already be missing an eye or be willing to get rid of your existing eye. So, you got to really want that if that is the case. But then also the gold cost, if you want to have multiple of these, really starts to ramp up. And, obviously, you have to also have the ability to find a jeweler of sufficient skill to take the time, etc., to cut these to proper size. So there's definitely a lot of steps along the way to making this really effective. And I think for a lot of players, a lot of classes specifically, that effort just isn't might not be worth it because you get so many other things that are on par with this. But I think for like a third caster or a half caster, especially one where the narrative kind of lines up nicely with this, this is a really cool, super thematic item, and I like it a lot. I liked it when you first mentioned it, and this to me, I don't think I saw the original version, but this to me, looks like you've thought really well through the different types of invocations that are allowed here. And the cost kind of associated with each, and like cleaning it up to make it more accessible across a number of different cantrips, not just Eldritch Blast. So it can be used pretty effectively across a number of other classes with a number of different spells available to them. I think this is cool, and I like it a lot, and I would absolutely put it in my game.
Well, thank you, man. Yeah, I think of everything I've made in my lifetime, I think this is probably close to the top of my favorite items that I've made.
I think it should be, yeah. I think it a well-deserved place.
Thank you, my friend. The last thing I made holds a special place in my heart. This is a player species. It is called the Tethered. This started as a kind of pet project. A friend of mine a few years ago and I decided that we were just going to make our own module, which everybody should do, by the way. Even if it never goes anywhere, the amount of ideas that are generated by you and even one other person just deciding to create something one day, even if you don't have enough gas in the tank to get to the end, you're going to make cool stuff regardless. And this is the proof positive of that. This was created for a very specific module that ended up not being completed. One of the things that I really enjoyed about that project was it was a handful of playable species that I created. That was kind of my umbrella, was a few subclasses, a few playable species. That was my job. And this is now the current version of what I made back then. So this is called the Tethered. Every time a creature is born on the material plane, so too is a tethered. a creature made of shadow that possesses a soul identical to its material counterpart. Most never meet or interact with their material counterparts, but some tethered feel called to find them. Though created in abundance, the tethered are very weak when they are born, and most fade away after a few days. Those that survive reside on a plane of darkness, mirroring the material plane. Their bodies are made of wisps of shadow, magically bound together by the strong mortal soul within them. The tethered are inherently peaceful creatures and rarely possess an instinctual affinity for violence. Now, for a tethered in their natural form, the journey between planes is very difficult. Because of this, only a small number of tethered decide to travel to the material plane. Those brave tethered that do risk the trip typically do so in search of adventure, fortune, or their material counterpart. Those that have crossed tell tales of visualizing their death in countless gruesome ways or being blinded and burned by a cordon of flashing lights. The forces of planar travel cause a tethered to develop a more substantial, skin-like layer that can protect against natural elements, and make future travel as harmless as it is to humanoids. The protective layer can take on many textures, but is most often soft with very intricate raised patterns, as if tattooed or scarred. The layer is often purple, dark gray, or deep blue, depending on the circumstances of a tethered's birth, and any tethered that completes their journey to the material plane is regarded as a hero or a legend to the rest of their kind. If they ever return to their home, they are seen as more important than those who have not attempted the journey. While still in their place of birth, the tethered do not know each other by conventional names. Once a tethered crosses to the material plane, it's typical for them to adopt a word or phrase that is spoken to them as their name. A tethered that meets their material counterpart will often adopt a name similar to theirs. Some common accidental names are as such: hello, move, greetings, excuse me, help me, or friend.
I like it.
Thanks. A tethered lives its entire life knowing that a material counterpart exists somewhere else. This knowledge leads most tethered to develop a unique flaw. The tethered flaws table contains example flaws. You can roll on this table, or you can find one of your own. Some of the flaws might include your material counterpart always occupies a portion of your thoughts. You tend to overshare when discussing your goals or dreams. You have a crippling fear of any type of travel. You sometimes lie when it would have been just as easy not to. You prefer to keep to yourself, avoiding friendships. And you often have trouble understanding societal cues. So just something.
Yeah.
They got something mental going on all the time. And the tethered traits. For physiology and stature, you are a medium humanoid. You have a base walking speed of 35 feet.
Cool.
You also have resistance to shadow damage and dark vision out to 60 feet.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to eat, drink, or breathe to live. And this is a new addition. This is the Solar Absorber feature. You are immune to the shining condition. Also, once per long rest, when you take radiant damage from a single source, you can choose not to take that damage as a reaction.
I like it.
So one time, you can not take radiant damage. Just absorb it.
I think this is lovely. It puts me in mind of, the sort of common tales of like changelings, that like swapping of like fairy children for human children and crossing the plains, and those individuals kind of being interconnected, and their stories and their lives being woven together in some grand tapestry. I think this is very, puts me in mind of that. There's a lot of narrative potential here, and it just has a very lovely, if slightly sort of sorrowful, tragic tone to it. But yeah, there's just a lot of wonder, a lot of I think this is very, very cool in general. I think the lore that's built in there is really rich, and I like it.
Everything that I brought today, I feel like it has been notable in a game of mine in the past, and it's all it's a collection of things that I would really enjoy to keep in games in the future, for sure. What about you? What do you have for us today?
Well, let's see. I didn't bring quite so much here today. I did have a lot of things that I considered going back over. I went through some old subclasses that I had made. Just nothing was really sticking out to me as something that I really wanted to dive deep in at this point and jump into, or felt like I can make some revisions here, but that doesn't feel like enough to bring over. So I eventually landed on something that I had made that was deeply tied into the lore of the world that I had created when I first started playing in like a regular, consistent campaign and started running. And a piece of the lore involved, as so many times these do, this thing that combines magic and technology. Some artificer stuff going on with one of the characters, as well as across the world and some things like that. So I made some specific things for this. But as I was kind of reading back over a number of my things, they sort of took on a different tone to me as I was reading them. And I wanted to kind of address that collection of items specifically and bring them into perhaps a different sort of narrative structure or a different bit of lore, and sort of tune them closer to maybe a slightly different focus point, which I think could be very interesting to loop into a world, which you will see in just a moment. So if you would open up your document, you will see my improved Mechana creations, or Mechana creations, which was what I initially called these objects, were Mechana, a combination of mechanics and arcana. But I have updated things.
Look at this.
So, of course, when going back over them, I thought, well, this has a certain tone to it. A tone that perhaps I can bring into our existing lore on the College of Creation show. So, Arcanotech Industries is proud to introduce new developments in military and defensive technology. We understand that security is a top priority for our clients, and you need reliable tools that are built to stand up to the rapidly changing world we live in. Whether you employ a small team of personal bodyguards, a round-the-clock security team, or even a large-scale military division, you deserve the peace of mind that only comes from high-performance technology you can trust. Our new body armor and shielding options will ensure your soldiers' personal safety and the safety of your property, while our improved arms will subdue even the most stubborn assailant, and our personnel and equipment transport tools make emergency preparedness simple. You'll sleep soundly knowing that Arcanotech has your safety in mind. Order today.
I love this so much.
So I've included the old versions of these 4 items. And next to each one, I have included the updates that I have made to make them feel a little bit more in line with the ultimate goal of this lore-wise, is that all of these things are the kind of things that your party will not be finding in a common shop, in a magic shop or anything like that. These can only be seen upon, likely, military personnel, guards of the kingdom or whatever world you're living in, right? This is like military grade equipment that is distributed as such. And so you'll have to have a contact who can get you some of this stuff, or you'll have to maybe steal it off of a guard or something like that. But with that, I'll present here. The old Mechana armor was a +1 breastplate and had 2 charges. You could use a reaction when you took damage to reduce the damage and expend 1 charge to reduce the damage by 1d10. That was it. So I made a couple changes to add on a feature that I think is actually kind of... I've not seen it used in any existing armor within the game. So the new Arcanotech armor is a breastplate. It requires attunement, and it is rare. You gain a +1 bonus to AC while wearing this armor, and gain a damage threshold of 10. In addition, this armor has 3 charges and regains all expended charges when you finish a long rest. When you take damage, you can use your reaction to expend 1 charge and reduce the damage by 1d10, potentially reducing the damage below your damage threshold. This should be very rare. I just realized that I should have... I meant to knock that up to very rare. But yeah, you gain a damage threshold.
Hey, that's really cool, though.
Then we move down to the Old McKenna bow, which had it was a long bow, required attunement, +2 to attack and damage rolls, and had 6 charges, and you could expend charges to either deal bonus radiant damage, bonus fire damage and knock the target prone, or bonus lightning damage and stun the target. I simplified this incredibly. At this point, now it is just you can use 1 charge to deal a little extra damage, or 3 charges to stun. So it's basically a stun gun with a possible setting of just suppressive fire. So it's a +1 longbow at this point. You gain a +1 bonus to attack and damage rolls with this magic weapon. It also has 6 charges. When you make an attack with this bow, you can expend up to 3 charges to apply additional effects. On 1 charge, you can deal additional 1d6 force damage to the target per charge spent. And on 3 charges, on a hit, the target must succeed a DC 15 Constitution saving throw or become stunned until the end of your next turn, and it regains all expended charges when you finish a long rest. So it's just a nice little stun arrow.
Yeah, I like that a lot. That's very, very cool, and much cleaner and easier to use and understand than the old one, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Then we have the McKenna disc. You can toss this small disc onto your space or a space within 15 feet of you, causing it to expand into a 5-foot radius circle and hover. A creature on the platform can move the disc up to 40 feet in any direction as a free action. There were some complex rules about if multiple creatures are on the thing, and I just I got rid of a lot of that, and it's got a carrying capacity and stuff. I changed a bunch of that. Now, this 5-inch radius disc of metal weighs 5 pounds. If you are within 10 feet of it, you can command it to expand into a circular platform 10 feet in diameter and 1 inch thick that floats 3 feet above the ground or returns to its normal form. So you just get close to it, you can speak a command word, it either expands or contracts back to its form. The disc is immobile on its own, but a creature standing on it can command it to move up to 40 feet per round as a free action. It can move across uneven terrain, up and down stairs, slopes, and the like, but it can't cross an elevation change of 10 feet or more. The disc can hold up to 300 pounds while moving normally, or up to 600 pounds while moving only 20 feet per round. So it's a lot more clean,
cool.
A lot more simple, and it's a nice little mechanical thing that has a similar effect to a Tensor's floating disc. But is a bit more versatile, as anyone can use it and you can choose to move it rather than having to drag it along behind you.
I'm picturing just an entire fleet of soldiers all riding their discs Silver Surfer style in their battle armor. That's such a cool visual. Just hundreds of people just
just a bunch of soldiers they can move around
whisking
very
over
quickly
the ground
around the city or around wherever they happen to be, or this can also be very easily used as equipment transport. You jump on, one person needs to be on it, and you can stack a bunch of stuff on top of it and just quickly move it from one place to another. So maybe you go into a complex or something like that and just kind of see these just whizzing all over the place, carrying up to 600 pounds of gear back and forth across a place, or in a factory or something like that.
Very cool mechanic for a big arcane factory. That's very cool.
And then we have the old McKenna shield, which had a very complicated force field thing. It functions as a shield +2, but then you could use an action to drive the shield into the ground and create a dome force field that had hit points and an AC, and things originating from inside of the dome could exit as normal, but nobody could come in once it had passed out of the force field. It was a little too complicated. And then there was some other stuff about if people are inside of the dome when it loses its HP, some of them will take overflow damage. I simplified.
Perfect.
Again. The new Arcanotech shield is a +1 shield. In addition, the shield has 2 charges. As an action, you may expend one of the charges to activate a force field. The force field is a 10-foot by 10-foot panel of invisible force centered on the shield. Nothing can physically pass through the force field. It is immune to all damage and can't be dispelled. However, a disintegrate spell destroys the force field instantly. While the force field is activated in this way, you may not move or take actions unless you use a bonus action to deactivate the force field. The shield regains all expended charges when you finish a long rest. So this is literally just one
portable
of the
wall of
force.
Wall of force.
Yeah. One of the 10 foot by 10 foot panels. The idea with this, though, is that if you have enough soldiers with these, they stand in a line, they all activate, and they just butt the edges of the field against each other. And then you just have a riot wall.
You got a force phalanx.
Right, exactly. Force phalanx. They all just stand there. They will take no damage. You cannot do anything to them or anything like that. So it's
wonderful.
Aggressively military in that way. But if your players get a hold of this, like that could also be incredibly useful.
I love how differently all of these items can be used. The range of use varies wildly, because any type of formational assault is going to use them, like you said, in that way. You're going to make that force phalanx. You're going to have soldiers whizzing across the battlefield on their Arcanotech discs. They're going to be surrounding creatures and stunning them with their bows. And then if you are in a small party, assuming that you can only get a hold of a few of these, not everyone in your party is going to have these, nor would everybody in your party be able to use them. So using them as a single creature, like that Arcanotech bow, immediately goes from a riot control tool to a stealth tool, right? That is an infiltration weapon.
Right.
In the best way possible. Love these. I love that you attributed them to Arcanotech. The lore deepens as it does every 5 episodes or so.
Arcanotech has military contracts. I don't know what to tell you.
Oh, 100%. They're the BlackRock of the magical world. They're in and around every single operation. Arcanotech is somewhere. If something's happening in the world, Arcanotech is involved somehow.
Michael, I really enjoyed your revisions of your creations.
Thank you.
Making some stuff for Arcanotech and building out some more of the lore to that. Like that a lot.
I also enjoy it. Any chance we get to deepen the Arcanotech lore to help us with our impending Arcanotech module that will definitely write someday.
Someday. The Arcanotech factory will be built out one day.
Well, a fine episode. Thank you for creating, as always, Dan.
Absolutely.
This is normally where we would say we have a big old table full of prompts that we get from our listeners, from each other, all those other places. And today we are not saying that, because over the next couple weeks, things are going to look a little bit different here at the College of Creation. We've said it a couple times over the past few months or so, but my wife and I are expecting our second child. And this time next week, it is very possible that child will be here, and I will have a totally upside down schedule. So I am taking a couple weeks off, but fear not. Dan is not taking any time off.
No, sir.
He will still be here. Absolutely. So our episodes are going to look a little bit, or sound a little bit different over the next couple weeks. But we hope that you still stick around, because we have some cool ideas coming your way. Dan, do you want to talk about those for a second?
Yeah, we're giving Mike some paternity leave here so that you can focus on being there for your family and taking care of that. Obviously this creation stuff gives you a lot of joy, but everybody needs a little bit of a break. Michael, you put a ton of work into this show, and we need that work elsewhere right now. So I will be taking the reins, but there will be plenty of creation. I'll be talking through some creations of my own. Some things that I'll just be doing solo. So if you like hearing my voice, you're in a lot of luck. But If you also like hearing other people's voices, don't worry, because I will also not be alone. We've got at least one guest lined up, ready to go to fill Michael's shoes for a brief moment. And we'll be looking forward to that as well. So we hope you'll still tune in, see what we're here for, but there's still more creation coming in the interim, and there will be much, much more creation when Michael returns from the break. We'll get right back into it, even fresher and better off.
Again, thank you all for listening. If you would like to give us a prompt for when I return, you can always send us an email to collegeofcreationpod@gmail.com, or you can check us out over at the Patreon, patreon.com/collegeofcreationpod. We would love to see you either place. Dan, until next time, you all have a great night. Goodbye.
Goodbye.